Live broadcast, everybody. My name's Yusuf, and we have Harjan, as well as a guest you guys haven't seen on the podcast us before. We have Lee Bailie, our OEM correspondent, and
Hello.
Today we're going to be talking about a pretty controversial car to a lot of people, the brand new 2025 BMW M5 sedan and wagon. So without any further introduction, take it away, Lee.
Well, thank you, Yusuf, and thank you, Harjan, thank you guys for having me. The M5 is all new, 7th gen for 2025. The big headline is it is now a plug-in hybrid only. So no more gas-only M5s if you talk about a new one. And for North America specifically, we get the wagon as well as the sedan. I recently drove the sedan. Here's some B-roll here of the wagon there. It's available, by the way, if people like the bright colors. BMW is making this car available in 150 colors minimum.
Wow.
So if you got the dough, you don't need to get black, white or silver. You can get like
no way
this hero yellow color here. But is that better? How's that?
You're good. You're good.
Okay. It still has the V8, so it has the 4.4 liter twin turbo V8. The only difference is that it now has an electric motor. Before recording, I was saying to Yusuf that it's just like the XM, so it has an integrated electric motor in the transmission. Yeah, X-Drive all-wheel drive standard, of course, which was the previous generation also had that. 717 horsepower,
Holy.
738 pounds-feet of torque, 0 to 60 in 3.4 for the sedan, and 3.5 for the touring, which is the wagon.
That is more power than anybody needs from a vehicle.
We were chatting about this. It's like, tracking this car? Certainly you can. You can turn things off. You can rear bias the drive so you can hoon around on a track, no problem, if you want to drifting and all that. But it's giant gobs of power that if you're not ready for it, like even on city streets where I wasn't driving like that at all.
Yep.
It's got tons and tons of power. The other thing I would mention is the weight. A lot of my colleagues have been calling it like a fat pig, and it's a fat bastard, and it's like a tank on wheels.
Yep.
And it is 5,400 pounds almost, which is a lot. But when you're pushing that much power, in my experience, I was aware of the length and the width, but I didn't think, oh my God, this thing is, it's not slow.
Yeah, it doesn't feel heavy after 500 horsepower.
No,
right?
I was going to say, you guys have driven high horsepower cars too, right? Once you get past that, it's like, no, this thing could be 10,000 pounds and still fast.
Yeah, if it made like 340 horsepower, then obviously you notice it.
Yeah.
And another cool thing to note about the car is the wagon is only $4,000 more at MSRP than the sedan, which I thought was pretty cool.
The gap in both, I was looking for the story that I wrote, I was looking at this, and in both countries, the delta is not, the wagon is more.
For sure.
Spoiler alert, but that's true for a lot of wagons of high performance, like we were talking about the R6 Avant before, like, it's more, it's more money than...
So how do you think the sales breakdown is going to work from wagon to sedan?
Oh, that's a good question.
Do you think everybody's saying, oh, bring back the wagons is going to result in the sales, or is it going to make up 3% of the...
Well, the thing about the R6 Avant is it's wagon only, right? So there's no sedan, at least not in North America.
So you can't compare it.
I guess RS7 technically, but yeah.
Correct. BMW, I think, my colleagues and I have talked about this, that you can thank the RS6 Avant to a degree because it's sold quite well in North America for convincing BMW. There are probably other factors, but BMW probably saw that. They're like, oh, geez, high performance wagons are a thing here. We should bring the touring M5 to North America. I think that was part of it. But in terms of the sales split, I think it'll lean towards the sedan overall, but I think the
100%.
Wagon, it won't be like 90-10. Like I think it'll be more of a
like a 30-70.
Yeah, it won't be 50-50. I don't think, because the sedans tend to rule, especially in the United States. But
even the C63 AMG, like we got the wagon.
Yeah,
and
we did.
We got the C43 wagon.
We had the E63.
We had the E63, but we also got the C43 AMG wagon in Canada, but the US didn't get it, from what I understand.
Regardless, there were a lot of options for Mercedes wagons that we got, and still to this day, very, very rare to see them on the road.
Yeah, I mean, I drove the E63 in the last gen before. It's so funny, like Mercedes has culled so many of their coupes and convertibles and wagons. Like the coupes now, it's like you have the SL and the GT. Those are your coupes. So if you wanted... Oh, and the CLE. Pardon
Yeah.
me. The CLE is available as a 53, which is an AMG. But in the old days, you used to have E or C63 wagons. You used to have convertible coupe. Like you had all the different
Yeah.
forms, and now they basically have consolidated them down to the wagons are basically gone, and you're basically looking at sedans for most of their cars,
Yep.
or like, and those coupes I'd mentioned, like the GT Roadster and the SL are 200K north in Canada.
Yeah.
Like they're just
So
in the stratosphere.
Unobtainable.
Unobtainium, yes.
Yeah.
out of all of the like hatch wagons or performance wagons, I guess you could call them, that you're able to buy today, what would you recommend? What was your favorite to drive, and what do you think you would best live with? Obviously, for the price, with that in
geez.
mind.
I know we're talking about German cars here, but you guys I'm sure are familiar with like the Civic Type R
For sure.
and I gotta say, I think the Civic Type R, and it's obviously comparable as the GR Corolla. GR Corolla, not as nice of an interior,
Yeah.
but in terms of fun hooning around, oh man, I feel like the Civic Type R is almost too refined. It's
Interesting.
so refined, like it's bullet. It's like
There are both, yeah.
Honda has polished it to a mirror sheen kind of everywhere.
Yeah.
And I still think for the money, it's a really good bargain.
Yeah.
But man, that GR Corolla, it looks like a video game kind of car. Like it has that, and the interior is, interior is not bad. I've driven them both a couple of times, and I like the fact that it's a little more rough around the edges.
For sure.
And the
Reminds me of
performance
the,
is wild.
Reminds me of the Focus ST when that first came out.
Yes.
And everyone
Yes.
was like, wow, look, it's a performance car for like entry level pricing.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. Same thing. It was like a little bit rougher on the edges, but like it was, the tunability was there.
Yep.
And I feel like, yeah, you're right. Like the Honda Type R, I think it is kind of like
It's so refined.
they've put everything that
so
they
refined.
can into it, and it kind of takes away from the owner kind of adding.
I wonder how the aftermarket community is going to really respond. I know that you guys know
Yeah.
better than I that Honda's Civics. I have an 8th gen SI.
Okay.
Shout out. My own car, 2010. Very popular tuner platform.
Yeah.
But I wonder how these current cars are going to age in that way.
I feel like
You guys know better than I.
So my thought process is technology in general. If you
Yeah.
were to use, let's say, a phone made in the year 2004 versus the year 2008, they'd be relatively similar. A few different differences.
Right.
If you were to use an iPhone from 2019 in today's day and age, it would be almost archaic to you.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's also going to translate to cars because your infotainment, your navigation. I think, for example, cars that have, to control the vents, it's electric.
Yes.
I think that's absolutely the dumbest thing ever. And it's going to phase out stuff like that. So I feel like with the advancements in technology and how fast stuff are moving, cars are going to become outdated way quicker.
The one thing I will say with the M5, just to bring back the M5 for a second, is those old M cockpits that had like the circular gauge pod, the white face gauge, the minimalist sort of center stack. This car is now, like many modern cars, it's very screen heavy. You can kind of, we got that roll in the
Yeah.
background.
Yep.
Like if that's not your thing, if you don't want a 27-inch panel where everything's been dumped into the screens, even like seat heaters and heated steering wheel, for those of us live in cold places, we kind of like that in the wintertime. You don't want to be digging through a menu, not optimal. I wish those were on a row of hard keys, like where that carbon fiber strip is. If that was just like quick shortcuts for
Heated seat, heated steering
yeah,
wheel.
yeah,
up, down,
or
correct.
ventilated or fan speed or whatever. So that's the one thing that I would say. But the iDrive controller, you see it there. I mean, it's very, and that little tab there on the left is actually the gear selector. So it's a tab.
Yeah.
So
It is all
so traditionalists
swapped.
might have a bit of an issue with how advanced the cockpit has, but the lighting, as you can see, is really nice. The one
Yeah.
thing we were mentioning is that
The climate. Do you see the slash where it's like red
Yes.
and blue on the other side?
so that goes full red if you put the hazards on, and it goes into the door panels like red, like you feel like you're on a sub that's under attack or something. Like it's, I guess.
So the next question that I have about the car,
Yeah.
for the value of them in that 150 to 200 ish $1,000 range, depending on your spec,
Yep.
is it worth the money?
I said in my story that I thought that it was, as long as you, like this car, just a peek behind the curtain here. So the unit I drove was from BMW Canada here in Toronto. The sticker, before taxes, they optioned it out. It was 160K Canadian before taxes. So out the door, it's going to be pushing 200K.
Luxury tax, yeah.
And it has that too, and then the various dealer fees and whatever.
Correct.
The base MSRP in Canada was 135 for that car.
Yep.
So it was pushing one. So you're talking 25K. So once you start to option it out, I feel like the value proposition starts to not go upside down, but it starts to become. So I think if you can show a little restraint with the options, the better the value. But I mean, this car has the kind of technology and the kind of performance that is rare for a sedan. I mean, certainly you have like exotics that are, your Astons and your Lambos and your Ferraris, but for a sedan, the M5 has always been like the pinnacle, and I still think it really is. If you're talking about a sedan or a wagon, this kind of performance is maybe the Garcic Savant on the wagon side. But for sedans, I mean,
can't beat it, eh?
And I don't think so. I mean, I think it's M. There's something about M's. It's like we were talking about this before we started recording. Some of these German cars are just, even people that don't know a lot about cars, you say that's an M5 or an M3, they kind of know what you're talking about. Yeah. Immediately.
Awesome.
And it's kind of hard to kind of debate on price with this car.
Eyes in the beholder. Value.
Your gear shift selector.
You know what I mean?
Your gear shift selector is made out of Swarovski crystals.
Yeah.
To put in neutral, park, all that. Your seat adjusters, Swarovski crystals. So I mean, the person who's buying this is not the A to B, I just need it to run kind of person.
Right.
They are, looking for kind of that luxury and,
for sure.
They're enthusiasts, I would say.
Luxury enthusiasts.
But is it worth $55,000 more than an M3? That's the other question.
Oh boy.
Comparing apples to apples, both. Well, one a mid-size, one a large sedan, and BMW. But
how much does size mean to you?
But is it worth an entire 3 Series, another 3 Series, or an X3 or whatever on top of an M3?
Well, it depends.
It's hard to answer. Before I started recording, I mentioned I've driven the M2, the current M2, which is now closer in performance to the M3 and M4. Like the gap is narrowed. Has over 400 horsepower and over 500 pounds-feet of torque in an M2, which is pretty wild. And that costs less than half of what this car costs. Now, it's a lot smaller, but you can get it in rear-wheel drive with a manual transmission. And if that matters to you, and it does for a lot of enthusiasts, myself included, where you can't do that with this car anymore, it's automatic all-wheel drive only. The M2 is pretty compelling, I think.
M2 is definitely the most driver-focused car that BMW offers, other than like the Z platform.
Right, and even the Z4 now you can get with a manual.
Exactly. So I think that's kind of where it peaks, and then you're entering basically like a luxury daily driver sports car after the M2.
For sure. Because the M2 is exactly half the price of an M5.
Right. And I think with this car too, also we were talking about this before we started recording as well, that it's the rarity. Mm-hmm. These are like you were talking about the materials. The whole car is kind of a rare earth mineral in a lot of ways. Because you don't see a lot of them around. Even older generations that we talked about before I started recording about how even those that are so popular now after 20, 25 years, you don't see a ton of them though.
No.
They're rare. And I think this car in 25 years, you won't see a ton of them either.
For sure. Most people can't tell you the last time they saw an E46 M3, 996 911, RS4, etc., etc.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that's part of the value proposition as well. For sure. I think. Yeah.
Okay. Well. Awesome.
And we did get a comment on YouTube.
Oh God.
Neil Patel says
Who's
the M5
that old guy?
wagon is so sick. Should have brought the M3 wagon to the USA.
Yes, which we talked about on you guys talked about on the pod a couple weeks ago. The M3 CS only going to Europe, Korea, Japan, those Australians.
Yeah.
Bloody Australians. M3 CS touring, but it's never been sold here. And neither the M5 touring either. I agree with the commenter. We should have. I mean, those cars would have been popular for
M3
U.S. and Canadian customers for sure.
Yeah,
a little more obtainable. But do you think, depending on how good the M5 does, you think they might potentially bring it here, or you think that's a ship that's already sailed?
No, I
many
think
years ago.
well, the M3 CS Touring that we covered on the pod is a limited production, so they're only going to build so many of them. So I think that's set in stone. But the manufacturers always, when I talk to these executives, they always say that we're, without being too specific, they say we're always looking at different markets and what the interest is online. Like they track who watches stuff on their YouTube channels and what the comments are. And
For sure.
So they're very aware. I think the M5 Touring coming to North America is due to the public's outcry for we want this car, and certainly the RS6 Avant doing well as a competitor certainly was a factor, I think, probably. But I think, yeah, so if people keep agitating, if people keep saying, they go into their dealer, because they hear it from their dealers too, like it travels up the food chain.
Yeah.
Like they hear that people going to their dealerships, saying, where's the wagon version of this car? It's like, that'll eventually, if there's enough if it reaches critical mass, you could, yeah. So I would say forever's a long time. Right, so I'd never say never.
Yeah, because I would say the common trend that we're following now is essentially North America is only getting the bigger, larger cars. So M3 wagon, is probably not going to do as well here because a lot of people are going to complain about the back seats and how they're not, as spacious, or they can't fit enough groceries in the back. Same sort of reason applies to why we didn't get the GR Yaris in North America.
Yes,
is because it's too compact, and the North American market doesn't like things that are tinier.
When you're driving on a highway anywhere in North America, you don't want to be in a Yaris when the guy next to you is in a 350.
I wouldn't say necessarily based on safety in that reasoning, but more so daily ability. Like, you can't really put all your groceries and, you can't fit all four of your buddies in a Yaris and be comfortable. Like, there's going to be a lot of complaints.
For sure.
Toyota's response to me and other journalists who have asked have said, we have the GR Corolla.
Yeah.
Similar development, there's a lot of overlap between those two cars.
For sure.
That's the official response, and both in the U.S. and Canada, various Toyota people have told me that.
Yeah.
Because I've asked, and I've said, this car would probably have appeal to the enthusiast community.
Exactly, yeah.
But it's the same, like you said, too small, and we don't carry the main Yaris anymore. The main Yaris, I think if we still had the main Yaris, which we used to have, it was discontinued, and then the GR comes out after that when they changed generations. So that's working against as well. And they said, look, guys, you're gonna have the GR Corolla. There's the Maurizio edition, which is seat delete and weight
carbon fiber roof.
I think there was 10 of them for Canada or something, like super rare. Driven by Toyota-san himself, and that's where he's Maurizio.
It's named after him. Yep.
So, but a colleague of one of the PR guys for I won't say who drove. He's from Europe originally, so when he goes home, he drives some of the Toyotas that we don't get in North America, and he shot video of him and his buddy hooning around in a GR Yaris, like drifting it, and I was like, God damn,
that would be a fun
it was just
experience
wild.
to have.
And I said to him, he says, I've told you why we don't sell it here. I'm like, I know, but I said, you got to tell me that car is amazing though, right? And he goes, oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. It's everything the GR Corolla is, just like maybe like 100, 200 pounds lighter.
Power to weight in that car is insane.
It's probably the best thing.
It's like, picture a tiny car with giant gobs of horsepower. And we talked about weight with the M5. Weight is not a concern for a car that size.
Yeah. No. And then so honestly, that's what I think is like it kind of translates over to the M3 wagon. A lot of more like wagon-esque, like M5 makes sense. M5 wagon, you're getting that trunk space. You're getting that
mid-size
rear leg room.
Yep.
You're not really compromising with too much, and then you just have too much power to even ask for.
You really do, and wagons are just handy. Like I was looking at the wagon at the recent auto show we had here in Toronto, and I've seen it online as well. And it's just there's so much. The space utilization is when you put those seats down, like it's just you can fit.
And
a
it's
lot
not
in
as
there.
tall
It's
as
practical.
most SUVs that you would expect. Like a lot of SUVs, you're kind of barely struggling to see over the roof line.
Right.
For sure.
Whereas this one, it's coming down to most people like either their chest, shoulders.
Yes.
So I think it's still like usable. You can take it down to like parking garages and stuff like that.
Not worry about getting it in or out, right? Or if you have a tighter, like your entry and exit is trickier. It's not big to the point where it's it's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
I think also, just speaking of size, generally, if you're a taller person, I mean, you are considerably taller than I am. I always think, and Adam is 2 tall guys, like I'm average height. So getting into these cars is not an issue for me, but I think, you know, an M2 for me, fine as a 6-footer, but if you're above 6 foot, like even for me, when I drove it, I had to crank the seat back.
Yeah.
And you can, you know, drive the Z4 or the Miata.
You can drive
but it's not
it.
as comfortable.
It's not.
For sure.
It doesn't feel like it was made for you to drive
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, definitely. There's a lot of cars that are very car enthusiast vehicles.
Yes.
But I've never actually been able to enjoy.
Yeah,
it.
it's like the GR and the GR Corolla and the Civic Type R are like, if you're a taller dude or taller person.
The GR Corolla is actually surprisingly very comfortable for me, but the GR86 is a very it's like good on some days.
Those
bad on
cars
some days.
are so cramped. I do love the fact that Toyota and Subaru still build rear-wheel drive manual cars, like
Yeah.
save the manuals hashtag. But yeah,
And at a reasonable price.
at a reason, 100%.
Cheaper than a Prius.
So even pour one out for the manual for the GTI and the Golf R. Sadly, in 2025, they're automatic only.
Yeah.
But they still exist. Thank God. You know.
And Toyota managed to keep a front-engine manual rear-wheel drive sports car that's nice to be in, aesthetically nice to look at for cheaper than a Prius, which is crazy to me.
And I think that's kind of a throwing us a bone as people like enthusiast cars, because they don't sell in great quantities, but they still, like, I love how the 86 and the BRZ are still, like, they haven't discontinued them. Like, they gave us a second generation.
For sure.
You know,
Whenever
they
you
don't
see a
sell,
poster of
you know.
Subaru or Toyota, they definitely have it in one of their top lineups. It's not just,
Yeah.
Prius, 4Runner, all these, flagship cars, but like it's right there, front and center. They're, not embarrassed. They love it. Love showing it off. But what I would say is probably what are the top 2 or 3 best features that you saw in the BMW that you would like to see from other manufacturers?
I think going plug-in, we were talking a little bit about the software as well, that the full electric range is 26 miles, and that's not huge. But it's kind of, I said in my story that it's kind of future-proofing the car in a way, because tailpipe emissions and fuel consumption standards for Europe, you think they're stringent in North America, and they are, although with the Trump administration maybe they'll loosen them a bit. But they're crazy in Europe. Like I think the M5 now has a plug because they had to so it can beat emissions and be sold in Europe. It was essential. So I think the electrification is a good option with the gas. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get the cold starting, you get the acceleration from launch, you get all the benefits of electrification, but you still have the gas engine, so it sounds great.
For sure.
So I like that. The other thing I would say is the seats. The seats in this car are really comfortable, and we were talking about that before too, about how some seats are the bolstering is a little aggressive. Not in this car. It's you can get in and get out, and you don't feel like you have to be an Olympic athlete to not feel like you need to hit the gym or something. And they look great too. I mean,
those seats do look awesome.
Their bolstering is nice, and they're not. There's enough padding there. Like some seats, some Recaros are so aggressive. It's like, okay, dude, I'm not doing the 24-hour Le Mans here. Like, I want to have a little bit of padding.
Yep. Yeah. To be honest, a lot of OEM quote unquote bucket seat options do suck.
These are good.
Yep.
I would say they sucked probably prior to like 2010, 2015.
No, because even modern Porsche, like if you get the sport bucket seats, they're terrible to be in. In my 911 that I do daily drive, 2001, I have the sport seat option. If I'm wearing a winter coat, I don't fit in the bolsters. And I'm not a bigger guy. Like, you wouldn't fit in the bolsters comfortably.
But like I would say, like a lot of these sports seat options that I know Lexus is probably one of them, that they've been throwing their sports seats into pretty much everything, even like
all the
an
sport
NT,
options.
like an entry level SUV. But it's just like
they put them in the UX. The little SUV.
It's so crazy, and it's like this very sporty looking seat, and it's like it's very stiff, and I don't know. I haven't been a fan of them in general, but they have definitely come a long way since 2001, which is obviously.
The other thing I would say about is open up the color palette. Like BMW, good on them.
150
minimum.
150 colors. Is amazing.
Like give people. fun colors. This is a fun car. I mean, those who want to buy it in black are okay. Like, to each his own. Silver, white.
It'll be on the lot waiting for you.
But come on, like, you see this car in banana yellow, or the one that is going on the press fleet soon is like a emerald green.
Was it the frozen green?
Yes.
The same one. That was a gorgeous
Nice,
color,
right?
except for when someone scratches you in a parking lot,
Okay,
and then
that's
you
fair.
need the whole paint job.
I'm also looking.
all
I'm looking
over
at the
again.
prices of the paint options. They are give or take in the price of getting your car wrapped too. It's not like if you want, oh, I want to get a special green or a blue or a yellow. It's not okay. $20,000. It's $4,000, $5,000,
$5K Canadian for the Daytona Violet Metallic, which is purple. So the one I drove was purple, and I thought, yeah, man. And it had the interior color of the brown and the.
I love the
like
brown.
a nice. It's not all like I remember older German cars, black with black on black. It's like the Darth Vader mobile, and I'm just like, as a someone who's, when I was young, I want everything black. When I was in my 20s, it's got to be black.
Yeah.
Now that I'm a little bit past that, I like colors. Like, yeah, man, let's get some fun colors. Like,
Let's
like
get
the
it going.
red. Yeah,
I think
you want some purple? You want to look like you're the Joker? Okay.
The most typical BMW spec for color wise is always the white exterior paint, red interior.
Yes.
That is the most typical BMW. Someone says
White
they have
on
a
red.
BMW, it's white
White on
outside,
red.
Yeah.
red on the inside.
And I love, you guys probably are too. There's a lot of nice carbon fiber detailing in this car.
For sure.
Like, it has like a lip spoiler. The center console you see there up top has a nice strip of carbon that runs along the dash. Like, it's, even the engine cover, nice little detailing there.
It's the little things.
It is. And so, but exterior colors, I think other OEMs should follow the lead with their performance cars. I know Porsche does. I believe Audi also has once you get into the RS cars, you get some more color options.
For sure.
But when I saw 150, I was like, geez.
150 is awesome.
Wow. And yeah, like you say, for like 5K Canadian for the
That's the
color,
price of dropping your car off and getting it wrapped at a shop.
there you go. But you don't have to do that. You got actual paint.
But the question with an M5 now is that going to create the Corvette owner effect, where if somebody has a orange that nobody's ever ordered, that not many people order, oh, I have the only orange one from this year. Oh, I've never driven it in the rain, whatever.
I wonder. Yeah, I suppose. I mean, it reminds me of you guys remember the Viper, obviously.
Yeah.
I went to the Viper plant once, and they basically said this is one-to-one manufacturing. You bring us a chip, you bring us this watch, you bring us
Whatever
if you're
you
a
want to
lady,
paint match.
Bring us your purse, and you want it to look like your purse the color. We can do that. And I saw cars in the factory that were, get this. So one was black with creamsicle orange trim. The one parked beside it was creamsicle orange with black trim.
That's sick.
Both Canadian. They hadn't been shipped, but they're both Canadian cars.
That's awesome.
And I was like, and the plant manager says, yeah, we do. You see the colors that come through here. It's wild. And I'm like, but it's a Viper.
Yeah.
Like, why would you get silver if you can get creamsicle?
Yeah, exactly.
First gen Vipers also didn't come with roofs or door handles, so very interesting vehicles.
Yeah.
With that, I think we've covered the M5 pretty well.
Well, thanks, guys, for having me.
100%. Thank you for
Love
coming
it.
on.
Hopefully we can do
Thanks
this
for
again
being
with a
back.
different car.
Next OEM time.
Yes.
On our OE talk.
If you guys do want to see any specific cars, any
Yeah.
specific reviews, whether it be a car that's coming out, about to come out, is currently out, or has been out in the past, we do have Lee Bailie in house.
Yep.
He has driven just about everything under the
Our
sun.
OEM
and
specialist.
OEM specialist.
That's what I do.
He's driven literally just about everything under the sun and has a phenomenal knowledge about the cars. He's not just like, oh, I really hate it because it says Audi on it. He's very impartial, very
No, man. I'm brand agnostic, as I like to say.
just a car guy.
Yep. Exactly.
And
But he leans towards Toyota because they're the best. So. All right.